This is Colin Dixon with nScreen Media, and I have a special edition of nScreenNoise today. I've invited my friend Steve Hawley, who is founder and managing director of Piracy Monitor, to join me for an interview today. Steve, welcome. I'm glad we can work together on this little project.
And me too. Thank you for inviting me.
And we decided to get together because Steve introduced me to a very interesting company called MUSO, and we have Andy Chatterley, who is the CEO and founder of MUSO, with us. Very happy to welcome you. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
And Steve, so tell us why you introduced me to MUSO, and then we'll get Andy into the conversation.
Sure, glad to. Well, Colin and I have known each other for quite a long time, and I know his focus is about analytics and advertising and basically building an audience and building opportunity. I've taken on a focus about the other side of the analytics coin, if you will, and that's loss prevention. And I've seen things from MUSO for about the last 6 months or so. And I thought it was a really compelling story because in a way they do both. They both identify the loss and the theft of content and services and so forth, but they also identify opportunity. And I thought, gee, Colin should know this guy. So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Great.
So Andy, I know when we first met, and we haven't met face-to-face yet. I'm looking forward to that. But when we first met here in Zoom, you told me a story about, like a personal story about loss of intellectual property, if you will, by your wife's music being stolen. Tell us that story and what you've been doing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Stephen. Well, MUSO started about a decade ago, actually. And the reason that the company started was exactly as you say, it was to deal with the issue of piracy that we had from my wife's album. So prior to starting MUSO, I was a record producer for my sins, and my wife is a recording artist, still is a recording artist today. And when her third album came out, it leaked to piracy. So we were going for quite a high chart position in the UK, and about 7 to 10 days before the official release date, suddenly her fans alerted us of links on piracy websites. So, like many other people in the music industry, you sort of panic and go about trying to discover where the links are, what it means, how many people are getting them, how did this possibly happen?
So the audience that you've uncovered, we tend to think of pirates as pirates, right? We really don't give them any dimensionality or any personality. They're certainly not all the same, right?
You're so right. Yeah, it's exactly. In fact, you probably hit upon the biggest issue that we have. And when we speak about the piracy audience, there's this kind of preconception that it's, I don't know, 17, 18-year-old boys, males who are in their bedroom, wearing in their underwear, possibly downloading content to hard drives. Is in some ways the piracy ecosystem is arguably the largest video on demand platform that there is. And as a consequence, you've got sports fans, people who like, rom-coms or emotional dramas as much as you've got horror fans or, any type of genre is served on that platform.
So I'm curious, we're actually both curious, as you've got a database that takes 135 billion samples and so forth. How did this database get built? What are your sources? I imagine you didn't just go to Reddit and look for, Reddit threads that had lists of pirate sites on them. It must have been more scientific than that.
Well, actually, it was, yeah. I mean, it was. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily scientific, but it was a consequence of doing business protecting content for a decade, or actually for 5 years, when we really started to build out our analytics platform, because we were protecting content for, well, certainly in the music industry, for some of the largest music releases and some of the largest albums that were being released. So we were cataloging, classifying piracy websites as we go. So this is a torrent site, this is a cyberlock site, this is a referring site, and so on and so forth. So at our core, where probably the value of our technology really lies, is this large database of the piracy ecosystem. And so that drives all of our products, actually, but it drives our data product in order to understand where to look for content and how to find that content. and our data looks at the methods of piracy delivery, so how people consume content, and that's changed dramatically over the past number of years. Tends to mimic the real world. So just to throw a stat up, for example, in TV piracy, 93% of TV piracy is via unlicensed streaming sites, which is huge, because people still think of piracy as torrents and cyber lockers, and when you can track it down to those kind of percentages, it becomes really interesting. On film, it's 58%, so 58% is via unlicensed streaming sites. And it's just to answer your question, sorry, it's really about building up that knowledge of the ecosystem, and then we overlay various different data sets and various different ways of analyzing consumption of the content.
Is a lot of the viewing that you were seeing going on, is that you seem to hint at it was driven by concurrency, so very recent shows, that particularly recent shows that are not available in a particular region, they're obviously driving a lot of the access. So it's just simply that they can't get access through legal means. Is that right?
I think there's it's a really great question again, and I think there's a number of drivers for piracy that we see both in our data, but also when we've done panel data and sort of questionnaires amongst the audience. And it's access and cost. Those seem to be the key primary drivers. So yeah, it's not available in my territory. It's a new film, a new TV show. I really want to access it. I'll go and access it. And cost, usually looks something like, I've got platform one, I've got Netflix, but I don't have, Sky or whatever other platform. I don't have HBO Max. So I can't afford, or I'm not prepared to pay for another platform. I've reached kind of peak subscription fatigue, or whatever it could be called, and then they'll find that on piracy. And often there's a kind of third category, and I'm not sure exactly whether this is sort of just an excuse or this is legitimate, but I didn't know it was illegal. I searched on Google and I found a link and I saw it, and whilst I was there, I watched tons of other stuff as well. So a kind of accidental pirate.
I would submit that that's real. There's a lot of research out there that have been done in Asia Pacific, there's an anti-piracy group that's pretty active, and they've done some research. Australia, they've done some research. And I think FACT in the UK has also done research about that. So yeah, that's very much a real thing.
Yeah. I'm sure it is.
So I want to know, we hinted at this at the beginning. You have an opportunity to for content providers to maybe even monetize people that are watching illegally, right?
Absolutely. And this is it's really interesting. I came at this from protecting my content, being a rights owner, having an issue, wanting to stamp it out and not lose the potential revenue. And then after a decade of doing it, building up this platform, what I realized is the audience is so big, so vast, so interesting, and so nuanced that if you can understand it and you can measure it and you can action it, then you can create opportunity. Now, we're selling our platform to companies that use it for a number of cases, such as deciding what content to commission. So they, a broadcaster in a European regional country might use us to go, okay, well, this is interesting. Piracy is an early trend indicator, and the trend is pointing to, I don't know, film noir with a romantic twist, with a strong female lead, kind of, that's what it's looking like in their territory. So they are making certain decisions based on genres to commission. The same company I'm thinking of is also acquiring content from the data, because again, it's showing an audience demand where these films are not available or not readily available in their territory. So they're using it to say, okay, this film's really high in our territory. In piracy demand is really high. So it's not currently available in this territory. So let's go and acquire it. Let's go and buy it and bring it on the platform. Because as I said earlier, it's almost like the largest indicator of video on demand platform in the legal setting. So putting that to one side, there's various uses, I'm sure you can imagine, from informing anti-piracy strategies to selling your content or buying content or leveraging deals based on which way you look at it. We also take it one stage further, which is creating programmatic audiences anonymously for content. So, for example, if a platform was a sports platform, let's say selling premium sports via a video on demand platform, or we might create them an audience of people who are watching Premiership matches or Premier League matches, I think it's called, isn't it? Not Premiership. It's about a decade old. Premier League matches online, on Piracy, on unlicensed websites. So we'll create that audience. It's purely anonymized, but it's based on audience behaviors. And then we will, use attribution modeling to expand the audiences out, create a lookalike audience that can be used in standard programmatic advertisement. So not advertising on piracy sites, not targeting individuals specifically, but using that demographic data and that profile to build, a programmatic audience that hopefully improves the cost of acquisition if you're trying to drive subscribers to your platform. And it works incredibly well, in improving those campaign metrics, because you're really looking, obviously there's going to be crossover from audiences, but you're really looking in a kind of large but niche area where no one else appears to be looking for these people.
So in the last minute, Andy, what's next for MUSO? We've got I guess we're not in a young 2021 anymore. It's now getting on a little bit long in the tooth. So where are we going this year and beyond that?
For MUSO, I hope we can expand our client range and really get this data in front of as many people as possible and actually turn piracy and the problem of content protection into a real positive outcome for these countries.
Yeah, into an opportunity. Yeah, great.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I think we're pretty much done. Andy, thank you so much for joining Steve and I. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, guys. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Very good.
Thank you.
This has been Colin Dixon with nScreenNoise.